introduce yourself if you like to, and start at the beginning how you got into veganism, what year it was, and how it all unfolded.
Okay, my name is James, and I'm in Sussex, in England. And I got into veganism after being a lifelong vegetarian from about 8 or 9 years old. So it was the natural progression for me to do that, having watched a lot of these cowspiracy films and Earthling movies and things like that. So I first got into it, in sort of August 17, roughly, and then pretty much stopped around about March this year. So that's about 18 months in total. As I said, it was a natural progression for me. I came from the ethical angle really with it. And I saw sort of all the marketing that was going on in terms of, you can live healthy with substitute products, cheeses and milks and all this sort of thing. So I got into it, and for the first 3 to 6 months, I guess, it felt pretty okay. I'd detoxed. Oh, I don't know if I had detoxed. I mean, in hindsight, I probably hadn't detoxed, but I felt kind of lighter, because you can shed a little bit of body weight because you're not getting saturated fats, etc. And yeah, I was going about my business normally. That really kind of slowly deteriorated over the 3 month mark to the 18-month mark. And when, the first things that started to go wrong, I suppose, would be, as general apathy, I guess, slight feelings of depression, which then sort of escalated into feelings of nihilism, not really understanding what our point is, thinking too much about the cause. You've got this kind of holy shrine that you're supposed to abide by, in this religion that it patently is. You become consumed in thinking along those patterns every single day in, day out. So my whole kind of mindset and day-to-day thinking had become skewed. So that was probably one of the first things to go wrong. There's a deep sense of existential crisis in a way. It was a very surreal sort of feeling. And then following from that, it was really a lot of the physical problems that started to go wrong. On the first occasion was about May last year, I suppose. I was just sitting on my bed, probably about 4 p.m., 5 p.m., and I felt a complete numbness down the side of my body. Arm went completely numb, had a complete sort of locked in, almost, almost like a paralysis, I suppose. So, I feared the worst. I spoke to my mum, who was a nurse, and, luckily over the course of a couple of hours, that sort of rubbed off. And then from there, that kind of I think it was nerve damage. From there, it then escalated into serious pins and needles down both sides of my arm, both sides of my arms, both arms, I should say. I'd just be watching TV, having my arm on rest like that, for example, not placing too much weight on it. And then all of a sudden, I'm just going, wow, I can't even feel this. I can't even feel my arm. I'm shaking it off as if a fat girl or a fat guy had sat on it or something. And that would just persist, here it comes again, just shaking it off. That's only just recovered. I mean, I stopped this veganism 3 months ago, and I'm only just recovering from that, and what I think is nerve damage now. That was actually one of the least serious things. I've got a whole plethora, a whole catalogue of serious ailments that accompanied that. So, I mean, starting from, I suppose, most serious, and working down, I suppose that would be one of the things that was up there. But in addition to the what I think was nerve damage, I started to have serious heart palpitations, to the point where I called an ambulance on 2 occasions. It first started just out of the blue one evening, and I was just sat there watching TV, and my heart just suddenly just kicked up. Bang, 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 as if I just got off a treadmill, having sprinted for 5 minutes flat. I stood up, and I'm extremely dizzy, and my heart's pounding like that. And then that would kind of subside. So for the first couple of months, that would sort of happen and then go away kind of quickly. And I kind of shrugged it off, and I just thought, well, I mean, admittedly, I was having a couple of cigarettes, not heavy, no more than I had done for the last sort of 10 years prior. You know, I wasn't changing my behavioral lifestyle at all. And I wasn't drinking anymore. You know, my sort of lifestyle hadn't really changed, but I put it down to those kind of things, stress, etc. And then progressively that actually got worse. So I would be simply just, like I said, just sitting there watching TV. I then start to preempt this attack from coming on, and I can actually feel I'm about to happen. So I was around my parents' house one day, for example, just lying there around their living room, just chilling out, chatting, and I'm just like, wow, okay, this is about to happen again. You know, Mum, get ready. So she says, what do you mean? And I stand up, and I just go bang, 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 heart's going mental. I get a cold sensation down me. It then breaks into a panic attack. I'd never had a panic attack before in my life. You know, I'm a really sort of chilled out guy, and I'm shaking, and I'm on the bed just shaking like this, and my temperature drops. You know, I've got a cold sweat or a fever or whatever it was, and my heart's just going crazy. I'm not able to breathe properly. I'm kind of mildly hyperventilating in a way. So that was up there with one of the most serious things. Another serious ailment that came with it was in the form of severe dizziness. I'm talking a level of dizziness that would be described as sickening, and you know, I feared for my life like I've never feared for anything ever before. You know, I've walked off rugby pitches holding dislocated shoulders and broken noses and things like that, and I've never been fazed by anything. This is a feeling of, I'd just be walking down the street and all of a sudden I get a complete out of body experience almost. You know, I'm just completely dizzy, and I just feel like I'm observing myself almost from outside of my body, and I just think, wow, I'm about to drop. You know, I'm literally about to go. You know, I'd be with friends and I'd just go, sorry, hold on 1 second, take a ledge, take a seat. And it was, and I can't describe, you know, it's so hard to put into words, that this feeling of sickening dizziness that would just come about me. And that would happen 2 or 3 times a week, you know, and it would just come out of nowhere. And, you know, just to give you an example of how bad it was, I would want to make sure my phone was on charge 24/7, not because I wanted to check my Skype or my Instagram or my Facebook, but because I wanted to know the ambulance was going to be nearby. I'd already called the ambulance once. They came out to see me. Couldn't really put a finger on what was the cause. And I just wanted to make sure that my phone was there. I constantly wanted to have signal on my phone, because I thought if something happens, you know, I want to make sure that I can reach some emergency services. And that was my life for essentially several weeks. So that feeling of dizziness was awful. So yeah, I had the dizziness. What else did I have? So following on from that, tinnitus in my ears. You know, this was happening day in, day out. You know, I used to have it as a kid, but then it went away for years, and it all happened at the same time as these other problems started arising. So I could tell it was all interlinked. I'm just sitting there at night, and my ears start going, you know, really, really loud ringing. And I'm just going, well, what the hell's going on here? You know, and it's happening in the daytime, it's happening at the nighttime, morning, afternoon. You know, moving down, I suppose, in the severity order, the hair starts falling out. You know, it's big time. I know I'm 31, and I'm not going to have this hair forever. You know, there's baldness in my family, etc., etc. But I would honestly go to have a shower, and within 2 minutes, I've got hair in my face, in my mouth, blocking the plug hole, and I'm running my hand through my hair like this. And instead of getting like 1 or 2 pieces, I'm getting 20 pieces, you know, 30 pieces, 30 hairs, I should say. My English is awful today. You know, absolutely awful. And I'm just going, wow, you know. And then really going down the list further. I mean, I could go on and on and on. You know, I had serious knee joint problems. You know, I felt like my knees were 100 years old. I'd be lying there at night time again, and I've just got pain here, pain there. I'm thinking, well, I haven't done any sport. Okay, I'll go to the gym, but I'm not that taxing at the gym. I just do my sort of normal routine. I'm not really pushing myself that hard. what could it be? What is causing this sort of pain? So that was the knee joint problems. I then had, okay, what else did I have? Well, what didn't I have? That, going to the toilet, for example, I was needing to go to the bathroom to take a pee, probably in the region between 10 times, 15 times a day, maybe, and it wasn't very healthy smelling urine in some sense. And then bowel movements would be between 4 and 6 times a day, something horrendous. So yeah, this was all happening at the same time.
What about bloating, gas?
I see you have a lot of documentary, a lot of videos about bloating, gas. I mean, yeah, I suppose so. You get a lot of people with these digestion problems, but because I think I'd been a vegetarian, I think before, and because I'd probably not had the animal protein reserve in me, I think that was the last of my worries. I think my biggest worries were the psychological, the physiological, the brain issues, and the nerve damage that I think was starting to happen with me. I think I was fast forwarding through time. A lot of these vegans are fine for 20 years. A lot of people maybe are coping better than others with it. They have a better reserve of animal protein. For me, perhaps it sounds ridiculous. I'd only done it for 18 months. But as I said, I was vegetarian before, and I know that I didn't have those issues then, and these issues all came together at the same time. And, I still had a bit of bulk on me. I'd known about the healthy plant foods. I'm always, I've always cooked or eaten properly, my bean dishes, my whole grains, the cruciferous vegetables, my nuts, my seeds. I before anybody says anything like that, that was my life before anyway. So I hadn't done anything different except for remove the animal protein. So yeah, digestion problems. As I said, I'm just constantly going to the toilet, for number one and for number two.
Would you say that you got all of these problems sooner than other people because you were a vegetarian before?
Absolutely, wholeheartedly, yeah. As I said, as a vegetarian, I looked healthy. I was 101 kilos, which is 10 pounds, 220 pounds maximum sometimes, and strong guy. But at the same time, I mean, as a vegetarian, I still had the odd. I had feelings of depression quite often. I had erratic thinking patterns. I had sleep apnea, which is what I've grown up with from, I think, as a young kid. I've still got it now. I don't know whether that's related or not. I can't pin everything onto this. I have to have a objective kind of viewpoint on it. But I would say that I was never a bastion of health, perhaps. And I'd say that certainly, my transition into this veganism, that instead of me having a large reserve of animal foods or animal biology, microbiome and protein reserves within me, whatever it was, I probably had less than an average person, which is why 1 year in I was literally falling to pieces. So yeah, I'd say it was because of vegetarianism before, but that's great. I mean, that means that I haven't wasted 10 years of my life living as a malnourished fool, and I've actually realised it sooner than a lot of other poor people who don't realise in time. But then going on from that, just at night time, I almost think I had a stroke. I almost think I was suffering the beginnings of a stroke. I would lie there at night and I'd have these flashing images in my head. I mean, just 10 minutes into getting to sleep, for example, I'd start shooting like camera flashes going off inside my brain, for example. I was having these weird turns of being on a roller coaster. I'd feel like my equilibrium was completely disturbed. I'd have these flashing lights happening. And yeah, that was often when I was trying to go to sleep, and I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I know even less about nutrition than a lot of these YouTubers, but I know that there was a brain disturbance going on there, which was extremely scary. One other thing as well was a sudden drop in temperature, which you hear again and again. I'd be lying there in my bed, and it's not particularly cold. I suddenly start shaking, and my temperature just goes to zero, and I'm literally in a ball like this. I go from being quite comfortable to rolling over and just clasping myself like this, and I'm just going, geez. And it's like I'd been thrown into the Antarctic. It's not just a little shiver. It's not just me going, oh, a little bit cold tonight. It was a complete homeostasis of being completely normal temperature, down several degrees to feeling, oh my God, I'm freezing. I'd have freezing limbs. I'd come in from being outside in 15 degree, 18 degree, 20 degree weather, and I'd come into the house. I remember this as an example. Look down at my hands. My hands are blue. My nails are blue. I've got lines down my nails. And yeah, I'm just touching people. I'm shaking their hand, for example, in my job. I'm just shaking someone's hand, or one of my friends. I'm shaking their hand, and they're saying to me, "Wow, your hands are cold." This was happening as well. I had hypertension. I did have a little bit, maybe too much salt at times, but my mum took my blood pressure a couple of times. The doctor told me I had hypertension. But just to put it into context, from a high level, I was fearing for my life quite often. I was advised by a cardiologist who couldn't see anything wrong with me, admittedly, to buy a portable ECG machine. So this is a tiny little pocket device, because he said every time you have these episodes, try and record it. So you put your fingers on this ECG device, and it records the workings of your heart. So that was the kind of life I'd got myself into, that I was having to carry around a portable ECG. I was having to visit the doctor more than I'd ever visited the doctor before. I'd had the ambulance called twice. I'd had my phone on charge because I was scared that I was going to pass out. That was basically what my life had become.
Did you also take supplements as a vegan?
Yeah, and I think a couple of those may have even added to the problem. I don't know, and I don't know whether any of this can be attributable. Any of my symptoms can be attributed to the supplements. I remain open-minded about it. Although taken as a whole, I will point the finger firmly at veganism. But I would say that perhaps one or two of these things were a result of the supplements. When a B12 supplement, for example, I took, led me to feel extremely itchy all over. There's one day that I woke up and I had like a million little fires or little pinpricks going off all over my body, just little, just itchy pinpricks, just little itches going off all over my body. And I'm looking down, going, shit, I've got a rash. My clothes have been mixed with the wrong detergent or something like that. My bed, I've got bed lice or something. But then after a day of having this, I'm like, I've got no physical signs. I've got no marks on me. I've got no red marks. I've got no white dots. My skin looks great. Well, not great, but it looks fine. But this was a weird sensation of just tiny little. I attributed that to the B12 tablet, and as soon as I stopped taking that, that particular symptom went away, and my itchiness went away. So I certainly say that the B12 caused that. I can't tell you whether other tablets have. I know that multivitamins. I've not got on too well with some of those. I think the omega tablets probably helped, like algae oil. That's probably got some credibility. I didn't really have an adverse reaction to that, but no, the fact that you're hooked up to these supplements just shows that you're a patient. I don't want to be a patient of the system. I had magnesium, B12, multivitamin, omega DHA. I had zinc tablets. The list goes on and bloody on. Protein powder. So for anyone to say, you're doing it wrong and all this crap. No, veganism was doing me wrong. As I said before, I got into it from an ethical stance. I just purely looked at it and thought, well, if I can't kill the animal myself, do I have the right to eat it? Is it right that I eat it? And clearly, no. I mean, I now look at it and think, well, actually, we've been desensitized to the whole, we have become less human as a society anyway. I mean, our phones, for example, are an extension of us nowadays. We've become robots. We've become AI. So for me not to want to kill an animal now, I look at it and think, yeah, that's perfectly to be expected. It's it's the modern day age that we're living in. We're in a postmodern world of AI and IT, but at the time I saw it as a thing where, yeah, I can't kill an animal. I think it's wrong. I've seen horrific things that go on, and I still stand by the abuse that can take place, which is horrific. But the actual act of, living in alignment to what we're supposed to do and being a part of an ecology, I now look at that in a completely different light and see that, what right is it that I have? What right do I have to remove myself from that ecology simply because I'm deeming it as cruel, or society tells me that it's cruel? I don't think that I have a right to do that. So no, my mindset is completely taken a change on that.
What do you think is the future of veganism?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that. The future, I mean, the reason I'm doing this video is because although, if you take 100 people, 100 vegans, although 99% will eventually drop out, I think, or somewhere between 90 and 100, I think, because their health starts to fail. It's as simple as that. It's such an easy thing to change. If I'm eating a vegan diet and I'm fucking myself up, I can quickly go and change over to go and get some eggs or some bacon or something. So in that sense, nobody's trapped into it. So I think it won't expand. I don't think it will blow up to the level that a lot of people think it would. But because it's now being marketed as because it's being marketed so well, you've got, it's become a package which is almost, irrefutable. You can't argue against an idea that says, well, hold on, the environment's going to benefit, you're going to benefit, the animals are going to benefit. It's like the best salesman in the world. You sort of sit there and you go, oh yeah, do you know what? That's true, and this is a win-win situation. So while that's happening, I'm concerned that many people are jumping on board with it and perhaps doing. It's probably going to be short-term damage, but I strongly believe that there's people doing long-term serious damage in it. You've seen the babies who have died from it. I can see in the faces of a lot of these YouTube people that it's doing their organs and their skin serious damage. So I'd say even though 90% of people are going to drop out, I still think that there's going to be one or two people who are so ingrained and entrenched in that mindset, in that philosophy. It's a religion, it is a cult, as we know, and it's, for them, it's not just about taking the step over to eating an egg, anymore. It's become part of who they are, and they'd sooner lay down their life than make a very simple diet change. And those are the people that I'd really reach out to and say, don't do it. I mean, if veganism was a guy, what he did to me, I would have punched his head off his shoulders. That's how strongly I feel about what it's done to me. And I'm simply projecting my message out there because I know that there'll be people that will not get off the bandwagon and will carry on riding it through to perhaps strokes, cancers, mental impairment. As I said, this existential crisis I had, this feeling of complete, what the hell is the point in being here? I thought, well, if animals are being killed, I was thinking, what have we got to live for? You start thinking, well, and then you start thinking about trees being alive, and I'm thinking, well, and now plants are alive and feeling pain. You start wallowing in this self-pity, and if all of this is occurring on some level within people, especially the physical, people I really think it can cause a stroke. I really think it can lead to serious physical ailments. Then, my message would be, don't do it. You're clearly drawn towards the texture and flavors of animal foods for a reason. You're making mock meats, substitute meats for a reason. these fake turkeys and the fake bacons and everything and the sausages and everything. It's so patently obvious that you're doing this because we're meant to be consuming animal foods. And my only question now is what the ratio of animal food to plant food is, or whether it is 100% one of the. I don't know. That's the only question for me. But the question that I've answered is a really clear question, and I don't care what study is thrown at me to counter it. And that is the question of, are we exclusively herbivores? And the categorical answer to that is a resounding no, 100%. So I'd tell people not to waste their time, not waste their energy, and do what we've been doing for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. Yeah. But as the future, yeah, I think it's got a long way to go before and more people are going to get hurt from it. But it will be counteracted by common sense and people simply taking the option to say, I want to buy some meat. But as I said, there's going to be a small percentage of those people who refuse to do that. What's worrying me now is the way that it's being marketed now, and the sort of fail-safe. It's no longer seen as a hippie movement. It's seen as a why wouldn't you movement. Right. Why wouldn't you do it? And for those people, it starts as a health motivation perhaps, but then when you get into it, you then start looking at the broader picture of footage of animals being butchered, and you then become entrenched in this religion, and that just encompasses you, and it surrounds you and takes over your whole being. And for those people who are more impressionable than others, I'm worried for them. As I said, the physical ailments took 1 to 3 months to subside. The mental scarring, I think, I've taken away from it, is only just subsiding now. 3.5, 4 months down the road. I tell people how affected I was by it, and a lot of people can't understand it, and that's simply because I wasn't put in. I didn't break my leg. I didn't have a car crash. So on the outset, people can, you'd look at me and think, oh, he's got bags under his eyes. He's got that gaunt expression. His skin looks rough because that's a typical symptom. But he otherwise looks okay. But when you start staggering these symptoms one after another over a long time, it didn't need to be one single big event. I'm scarred by the prolonged suffering that I went through and the multitude and range of different issues that I experienced. And I'm now looking back at that and just thinking, Jesus, man, I'm more affected by what happened to me than I thought. I was fearing for my life. So yeah, it's the mental side that's probably taken the biggest tax on me.
Anything else you would like to add?
Anything else? Trying to think now. No, I think that's probably the biggest list of ailments that anybody's come on here with. I mean, I've heard them all before on your videos from one degree to another. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you've probably met anybody with quite so many as I had. I don't know.
It's definitely some tough stuff you went through. Yeah. Absolutely.
And as I said, day by day, I could get on with my daily life because I may only be experiencing one problem at a time. But the fact that then subsides and another one creeps in, and then I go back to the same one, and then I have a new one, and then that goes away. When I break that down over the course of the, probably a 6-month period, that happening, I'm traumatized by it, and I simply add, don't listen to these idiots on YouTube who use pseudoscience to propagate some fake idea that we're no longer part of nature. We are a part of nature, whether we like it or not. And it's just another attempt to dehumanize us and move us away from, what comes natural to us, in the same way that all these other isms are, these transgenderisms, feminism, whatever it is, these ways of normalizing things which are not normal to nature. Whether I treat someone the same or not is a different story. I'll always treat someone the same, but we have to sometimes just agree that this is one of our most natural things, in the same way as sleeping. We can't change the way we sleep. It's like someone saying we only need 3 hours sleep a night. No, you don't. You need 7 to 8 hours sleep. It's that much ingrained in us from our ancestral history, that you can't mess with it. You can't mess with it. So don't try and mess with it. And stay away from veganism.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right, man. No worries.